source of reasonable financing, which was similar to financing sought from the Inter-American Development, the Caribbean Development, and World Banks.
Increase in temperature levels that is impacting on our water supply, because the rainfall levels that we've seen this year have been really abysmal, by some estimates as much as 62% below or 60% below what would be considered to be normal for this time of the year. And the projections are that it might not, in fact, get much better than that.
The finance minister says recently the financial markets have not been good to small countries experiencing high debt, high deficits, and non-investment grade status. He says Barbados is not yet on safe ground, even though it's been ranked as one of the top developing countries in the world. Minister Sinclair admitted to economic slippage since 2008, but notes this has happened to many countries all over the world following the 2008 to 2009 global recession. The finance minister says several developmental projects are earmarked for Barbados, financed by CAF.
We're looking at a number of areas pertaining to the same water management, or water resources management, and the capacity for us to do that. In relation to our physical infrastructure, where the road networks are concerned in terms of the transportation needs of Barbadians to be able to traverse as they go about their human endeavors on a daily basis, the streets and highways and byways of Barbados, to ensure that those are in a good state of repair, and also for visitors who come to Barbados. We also will be looking at both of our ports, the airport and the seaport, through which, of course, hundreds of thousands of persons come every year as tourists, and Barbadians as regular travelers.
Minister of Culture Stephen Lashley says the time has come for Barbados to look at developmental financing in a futuristic way. He says it has to be planned out by seeking partnerships with international organizations such as the Latin American Development Bank or CAF. Mr. Lashley says as a small country, government has to look at some critical things within the context of affordability.
One of the things that we have to incorporate into the economic equation is how we will carefully finance social projects that are critical to looking at our total economic development. We are certainly on record as saying that Barbados is not only an economy. And when we say that, we are not just using words. We are understanding the wider and broader issues, that we can't talk about economic expansion and leave the development of our wider society behind. Currently, for example, we are grappling with issues such as violence in our communities, youth violence, gun violence. All of these, though, have a dollar value on them.
MP for St. George North, Glenn Clark, says the opposition Barbados Labour Party has no problem with Barbados joining the CAF. He says CAF's record is good and is another option for Barbados to try to access resources for development.
The number of countries within the region that have benefited from this institution, and therefore the opposition does not see a problem with the government or with Barbados joining CAF at this time.
Mr. Clark says there is a dire need for government to put money into sugar, agriculture, fishing and tourism at this time. This as he also called for diversification of the economy by government.
We believe that this institution should provide opportunity for projects, not only that the ones that the government sees as important, but should bring to Parliament those projects that the country believes will be useful for development, which will provide employment, which will generate capacity, because I hope that the projects that the minister have identified, have said road projects such as infrastructural projects, the airport, the seaport, and of course tourism development and agriculture.
Well, that bill was passed. Health Minister John Boyce wants health authorities to be constantly vigilant against re-emerging diseases like tuberculosis. He made the comments in the lower house as it debated the Pharmacy Amendment Bill 2015. The minister cautioned in the same way Ebola has started to re-emerge in some African states and among healthcare providers. If left unchecked, diseases that have been brought under control in Barbados can also return. Mr. Boyce also lauded the drug service for its safe management of drugs.
It is important for us to say to Barbados and to assure this chamber and indeed the country of the very safe management of our drugs, the management of our pharmaceuticals, the very safe and operation of our Barbados Drug Service. And I want to take this opportunity to, sir, to commend the director of our drug service and her team at the Barbados Drug Service for a job very, very well done.
MP for Christchurch West, Dr. Maria Agard, called for a national debate on the decriminalization of marijuana for personal use. She says it's a social justice issue that needs to be addressed.
I have difficulty in the number of drugs that can now actually be accessed in a supermarket setting. I want to give you just one example of my objection. You can go to any supermarket. You can purchase aspirin, 81 milligrams of aspirin. It is known as a low-dose formulation, but that can be purchased in any supermarket. The problem with that, Mr. Speaker, is that aspirin under the wrong conditions can be toxic. It is a poison.
Barbados ranks in the top 20 least corrupt countries in the world. This is according to the most recent data released by Transparency International. Transparency International's Annual Corruption Perception Index, or CPI, reveals how each country scores between 0 and 100, with 100 being the least corrupt and 0 most corrupt. Barbados scored 74 to be ranked at 17th and tied along with the United States, Hong Kong and Ireland. It was the only Caribbean country in the top 20. While Denmark was the least corrupt country out of the 175 countries assessed with a score of 92. Somalia and North Korea were the most corrupt with scores of 8. Well, we'll have more news ahead, but first we want to get your take on this question. Should there be a national debate on the decriminalization of marijuana? Text yes or no to short code 8111. We'll have the results for you at the end of the news.
This house was first purchased by the Robinsons, who then sold it to Indra Ford in 2007. She loved baking, but last year she forgot to turn off the stove. Luckily, Sagicor General was there to help rebuild. So now, the house will smell of sweetbread again for a long, long time. We know this house, like we know every house we insure. Across the land, throughout the region, we've been there. Sagicor General, wise financial thinking for life.
Coming up this Wednesday on The Mix, Celia Cullimore is sharing how she's contributing to men's health. Plus, Dr. Jerry Emptage is going to tell us all about his research in the area of prostate health. And Dr. Stan Odell will be in to talk about health or us. That's this Wednesday on The Mix. Don't you miss it.
Good morning. Tomorrow on Morning Barbados, you'll meet John Carl Martin and you'll find out about a space for the arts, and we'll also tell you about Happy Island Books.
And you'll get a repeat of Peter's pet peeve, and our doctor on the line will be along with something wonderful in the medical world.
Yeah, and the men are going to be talking tomorrow on Morning Barbados as well, Doug.
And it's Hump Day as well, so join us tomorrow on Morning Barbados.
This week on 18 Degrees North, children under 15 are having children.
I just loved having sex with him. He said I was his personal, so he doesn't have to use a condom.
Are our children being robbed of their youth?
Everybody see me looking at me and talking stuff because I'm young. I went through a lot of shame and disgrace.
What's being done to get their lives back on track?
A space is in the school system for them.
On the next episode of 18 Degrees North.
Airing Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on CBC, with a repeat broadcast Sundays at 5:30 p.m. and brought to you by Rainforest Seafoods.
Patient safety is paramount to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. That reassurance from two Barbadians from CEO of the healthcare facility, Dr. Dexter James. He says the QEH has signaled its resolve to ensure a safe environment as he acknowledged the work of its infection control department. According to Dr. James, efforts to maintain a patient safety environment are central to accreditation of the hospital.
This has become singularly important consideration in our health systems today. And it is in that regard we continue to promote good hygiene practices through the institution of our Stop, Think, Go initiative.
Minister of Health John Boyce says many of the challenges in infection control occur in the hospital's surgical services. He says preventing such instances is at the heart of delivering safe, quality care.
It is indeed paramount to the reduction in risk to patient, doctor, and other medical and paramedical staff. The importance of employing safe surgery and other medical interests in improving patient outcomes through ensuring adherence to proven procedures and standards of care in all countries has been the goal of the World Health Organization.
And Director of Medical Services at the hospital, Anthony Harris, says the Infection Control Department, though small, has been effective in its work. He says diseases respect no borders and the Infection Control Department ensures the hospital is safe.
We cannot have a safe hospital without ensuring that we are keeping all those infections down to a minimum. And also we have to be sure that we have good control of and use of our antibiotics in the hospital. And I'm particularly excited to see the fruit, as you said, planting a tree analogy, to see the fruits of your antimicrobial stewardship program. I look forward to cheering that on and giving you maximum congratulations for this effort. And I am particularly proud to see the work that you have achieved over the year.
A study of student readiness for kindergarten is to be undertaken soon in Barbados. This landmark survey is to be conducted in 69 schools. Acting Deputy Chief Education Officer Joy Adamson says it will look at the impact of nursery education. She expects it will be carried out over the next 2 years.
Using an instrument, an early development instrument that has been tested around the world to look at early childhood development. So it is an instrument that we'll be using to collect data because we do not have sufficient data collection in Barbados, and I don't think that we use that data collection as we should. So this instrument will be adapted for the Barbadian context, and experts from McMaster University in Canada will provide training in the administration of the instrument, and it's something that we'll be doing very shortly.
Ms. Adamson was speaking at the Postgraduate Certificate Early Childhood Education Program opening convocation at the Barbados Community College. The Maria Holder Memorial Trust is once again working with the Higher Education Dependency Unit of the Ministry and Wheelock College of Boston in a public-private sector partnership on an expanded program for teachers. Trustee Mary Brewster says education is one of the charity's largest sectors in Barbados. She says its commitment can be seen in its drive to have additional nursery schools constructed.
The first school bearing the name is the Maria Holder Nursery School, and that's located at Sharon in St. Thomas. We are currently in the process of constructing other nursery schools, and Gall Hills Christchurch is where we are, and that should be completed in 2016, let us hope. So we're trying to get it ready for the school term, basically. This project ties very nicely with our education thrust. We will need more trained teachers like yourselves in our schools who who will pass on the knowledge gained, as this course will give you the opportunity for you to teach others what goodness can come out of education.
Local disaster officials have been told to focus more on developing plans to respond to the aftermath of natural disasters. That advice from Major George Yearwood, a special assistant to the regional administrator of FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which is part of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. The retired U.S. Armed Forces officer told the lunchtime lecture of the Democratic Labor Party that a key component of an emergency response is managing people's expectations. He was speaking on the topic disaster preparedness from a tourism perspective.
It's important that we are able to manage the expectations of our citizens, of our individuals whom we service. Because individuals have expectations, and if we do not keep those expectations in check, then those expectations outlive and outweigh and outshadow what the emergency management can produce. And so I say in that regard also our stakeholders, those of us, those of you in the community, you have a role to play. Emergency planning begins at the lowest level. And so therefore we must be willing to do our part or ask the question, how can I help in preparing, in mitigating, and naturally trying to minimize the impact of any particular disaster.
The worsening crime situation, a struggling economy, and water woes facing the country. These are just some of the issues which will be on the agenda for discussion at the 77th Barbados Labour Party Annual Conference starting Friday at the Christchurch Foundation School. During a news briefing to launch the event at BLP headquarters on Roebuck Street, Party General Secretary Senator Jerome Walcott revealed the theme of the conference, Returning Hope to Our People. He says it will run through to Sunday when the party will unveil a special document.
On the Sunday, again, we reconvene and we'll be discussing a very important document for us, which we've developed, a covenant of hope with the people of Barbados, a document which we will discuss among our conference of delegates, and later on the document we produce for Barbadians. It is the sort of philosophical document which will chart the way the future for Barbados Labour Party in the next coming decades. And of course, in the Sunday evening session, we will deal with the party's resolutions.
Conference Chairman Senator Wilfred Abrams says there's a new feature to the annual conference this year.
On Friday, we're going to paint Oystins red. So after the formal aspects of the award ceremony are over, we're going down into Oystins to mix and mingle, talk, let our presence be felt, let our presence be known, because the conference, yes, is a Barbados Labour Party event, but it is about us touching base once again with the people who we're depending on to elect us when the time comes.
A suggestion tonight that officials need to look for ways to push what is unique about Barbados. This is the way Barbados will be able to earn money from the various aspects of its culture. That view from cultural practitioner Elombe Motley, who used as an example the way visitors are transported into Bridgetown when they leave the port. Mr. Motley says it's simple. Use a donkey cart rather than a high-end vehicle.
They don't have to be the same thing. We can put pneumatic, the old tires on it. We can put umbrella on it. We can put a hat on the donkey and say, call it Hole 'em Joe. And we can use Rihanna to drive one and publicize Barbados. My point is we have to make our culture distinct. And if it can't be distinct, we can be just a throwaway and so on.
Mr. Motley will deliver a lecture tomorrow night at the St. Gabriel's School beginning at 7:30. Well, still to come, a look at some of the stories making headlines across the region. But first, we want to hear from you on this question.